everybody.
I know a little bit about your background story, but I think these
Yes.
people would be really excited to kind of hear this
Sure.
because you are like a lemonade magnate, right? Like you have created this incredible entity
Yeah.
that sells lemonade. Isn't that right?
So I started when I was 4.5 years old, and what happened was I signed up in this thing called a youth entrepreneurship contest. So it was kids anywhere between, I think, kindergarten up to 8th grade, and they could come up with a business idea, they could buy a booth, and they had a tent, and for a day, they could pretty much sell their product. And so as a 4-year-old, a lot of my kindergartner friends were doing it. I decided to sign up as well, and I signed up into this contest, and over the summer, I didn't know what I was going to create. So I was looking for different things, different products that I could make and sell, and while trying to figure out what product I was going to sell, I actually got stung by 2 bees in 1 week. So I got stung by these bees. I was afraid of them. I was afraid of anything that flew, anything that buzzed, and my parents were like, okay, before you're afraid of them, do some research on them. And so I read some picture books. I believe I watched some animated videos, and I learned that they were really important pollinators and that they were dying at an alarming rate. And so I decided, okay, whatever I do for the fair, I wanted to help save the bees. And so around that same time, I got a cookbook from my great-granny Helen, and it was really old, tattered, gray. The binding was falling off, and it had her favorite recipe for flaxseed lemonade. So there's the family play again. And it was my great-granny's recipe. I took her lemonade, and I realized, okay, so if bees make honey, what if I use honey instead of sugar for that lemonade? And so that was my first time, I guess, selling a product. I made my first dollar. I had my stand that my dad helped make, and I was dressed up in my bee suit, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I got, I guess, a first little taste of entrepreneurship and as well social entrepreneurship.
Right. Well, that sounds absolutely amazing, right? Because it's like they say take lemons and make lemonade, and you
Yes.
did it. You literally did it.
Yeah.
What was the name of this contest again?
It was called the Acton Children's Business Fair.
Right. And so going from that business fair and taking that, where did this stand get set up? Give us an idea of what this looks like.
Okay, so the first time I set it up, it was at a very big fair, and there were about 100 booths. And then the second time I set it up, I believe it was in my front yard.
Right.
And the third time, my friend whose family had a restaurant, I set it up in front of the restaurant. And so I kept doing it. I would tell it once or twice every year. And one thing that always happened is that the lemonade would sell out in the first hour, couple hours or so. And it didn't matter how many lemons I squeezed, it would always sell out. And so I got kind of discouraged. I was like, okay, why am I spending all this time if my lemonade's gonna sell out in a couple of hours? And so I started brainstorming what are some ways for me to, I guess, be able to sell lemonade for longer and be able to help save the bees for longer. And so that's when we started doing little upgrades, like getting an electronic lemon squeezer instead of squeezing them by hands, or getting larger pitchers and carrying extra lemonade underneath. So I guess I got a first taste of how to improve, how to scale, and everything like that.
Right. So it's like you had to get industrious.
Yes.
It's like these decisions need to be made. So it sounds to me like this all of a sudden requires more people.
Yes.
Right? Because dad is incredible. He makes the stand. Mom is decorating and getting the costuming right. She's got the image set. But now you have pitchers to carry, electronic squeezers. I'm wondering, when did you recognize the moment, wait a minute, like you said, we're upscaling. We have other bigger problems to solve.
I feel like that moment was when me and my family, we were just going to a pizza shop in Texas. And we were getting our pizza, and the man actually recognized me. They're like, oh, you were the person that was selling the lemonade at the stand. Well, I'll tell you what, if you can find a way to bottle your product, we'll carry it here in our store. And of course, I was like, whoa, because I had always been in a plastic cup, and I had my sticker and my straw, and that was all I was used to selling. And suddenly I got this idea of how can we bottle and package a beverage in this big old beverage industry, how can we do that? And we started doing research. We started looking for the technology that we would need, the different certifications, the different co-packers, and that was another upgrade. I went from selling it from a lemonade to bottling my own product. And I was at first a little plastic bottle, and I had a little wagon, and I would go around to the different stores and sell it, and I would give them an invoice. But that was my first time delivering the lemonade. And so since then, we've been from one little store in Texas to now over 1,000 stores in America. And hopefully, we can get it here soon. But it grew pretty fast.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely. I mean, and you're like the delivery person,
Yes.
the mixer, the maker. What was that like for you to kind of realize that it's one thing to make a nice stand. It's one thing for mom to say, all right, the image could look like this. It's one thing for you to say, wait a minute, the recipe needs to be like this. I've got this idea of saving, let's see, an environmental sensibility like the bees. It's another thing to say, let's make a great product. Then there comes this moment of risk. Like, okay, well, what do we put on the table? Like you're saying, okay, we have bottling questions. We've got permissions to sort out. We've got regulations to appeal to and to meet. We've got all of these sorts of things. It obviously entails more time, more money, more everything. When was the moment that you said to yourself, this is going to be risky?
But it could be a good opportunity.
And it could be a great opportunity. Where did that question start to really come to you? And you, as a really young person, I mean, I don't know, how old were you when this question maybe came to fruition?
I feel like it was around 9. And the reason why is because we got an invitation, we got a letter from an Austin chamber, and they said, Shark Tank is coming to do auditions here in town, and we'd like you to maybe try pitching it. And initially, I'm not sure if any of you have seen Shark Tank, but the sharks can be pretty rough, and they can be mean, especially to kids. And so my parents they initially said, no, you're not going to go on Shark Tank because we don't want you getting discouraged, and we don't want, in case your product does not get a deal, we don't want you to stop trying to work and sell this lemonade.
Right.
And so I've always wanted to go on Shark Tank. I've always watched the shows, and I was like, no, I really want to go. And eventually, I convinced my parents to at least let me do the first little pitch and see how it goes. And so we did the first pitch, and it did really, really good. And we kept on going through the different rounds of audition until suddenly we were up on the show. And so that was a really big risk of, should we go on here? We might not get a deal, but we also might get great publicity and land a lot of seed funding for the company. And that was a big risk that we had to take. And eventually, it ended up great. I landed a deal with Mr. Damon John, so he's one of the sharks on there, and he's been a great mentor ever since. But I think risk-taking is an important factor in starting a company, or even as a student, because you have to learn from your mistakes. You have to also learn from your successes and go around and apply that in the future as well.
I think we find a lot of times today in the era we live in, I know a lot of people talk a lot about failure and success. And they talk a lot about the fear of failure. Failure is essential, right? We absolutely need it, and ignoring it or fearing it is a difficult. It's like you said, it's a missed opportunity. What was your biggest failure in this?
So I feel like before I had the lemonade company, I had a lot of other products that I would try to sell as a little kid in front of my house. Like I tried to do friendship bracelets at one point. I remember having like little flowers, picky little flowers from my garden and planting it in Play-Doh. So those didn't do great. They failed, but each time I learned something. Like I learned from my friendship bracelets that you can't do regular friendship bracelets that all the other kindergartners are doing. You have to do something different. So I learned about creating a unique product. And from doing the flowers, I learned that, okay, so you have a okay product, but you need to make sure that you have marketing. So you have to have like signage and things like that. So each of those little things that I tried to sell, because I've always been like kind of creative and I've always enjoyed making things, I learned something. And so even today, one of my biggest challenges in the past was after we went on Shark Tank, there was another company that had a similar name to ours. And my parents sat me down and they said, okay, so there's another company and they want you to pay a couple $1 million to borrow the name or either change the name completely. And when we went on Shark Tank, the name was Bee Sweet, Not Me and the Bees.
Right.
And so initially, it was, no, I'm keeping this name. I came up with this name when I was 4, and it's like the identity of my brand, and I'm not going to change it. And after like a couple of weeks of learning the different products in the market, I realized if I want to grow my company, I might have to change my name because I wanted to do lip balms and I wanted to do T-shirts and different products other than lemonade. And the former name didn't allow us to do that because there was already Be Sweet Cosmetics and things like that. So I couldn't really expand with the name I previously had. So I had to take a challenge, and I guess what I like to say is I call the challenge lemons and I call the end product lemonade, but I had to add the right ingredients and to turn it into lemonade. So we changed our name, but instead of just going through a name change, we got different companies and different partners to help us. So we completely changed the branding and the website, and the first time we launched it was at the White House. So I guess we took a big problem and a big difficulty that the company had, and we made it positive, and now that's the name that we have so far, and I still love it.
Yeah, and so you're right. You met this moment, and you said there's nothing in the world you'd rather not do, and you turned it into this wonderful success. What has the result been for you? What do you think by kind of taking that risk and giving up a little bit on your own preset ideas, and then finally accepting what ended up being inevitable? What do you think the result has been for you?
From that particular experience, I won an award for the name change. Right. And from other experiences, like getting stung by the bees and deciding to do some research on it, I have there's a company now that's associated with that. So in general, I feel like try something new and try to, even if it is a risk, try it. And you have to take account, okay, so what are the positive outcomes? What could be the negative outcomes? And make sure you weigh them. And when you do that thing, if it's a mistake, you learn what did I do wrong and what can I do to improve it next time. If it's a success, you can say what did I do right and what can I do to apply that to the next time. So that's what I've been doing, and I've still been doing it. I've run the company for 10 years, even though it started really small. It's been going on for 10 years, and we're still doing that every single day, problem solving and everything like that.
Well, yeah, I think I want to know how you make these decisions. Like, would you consider yourself an intuitive leader, or are you kind of an analytical leader?
Okay, so in my opinion, I'm more the intuitive part. My dad and my mom, they're probably the more analytical.
Right.
And I'm the person that goes off of something like, oh no, the bees are dying, I'm going to do whatever I can to save them. Or, oh no, there's not enough product in the stores, I'm going to go out to the stores and pitch the product. So I'm the person who takes whatever's in my surroundings, whatever I encounter, and do whatever I can to help solve that. And I think that it's important, whether you're intuitive or analytical, to find other people on your team that are the opposite. So you find your strengths and you find your weaknesses, and then whether it's a business partner or a partner for a project, you find someone that has maybe the opposite of that. So even though you might not agree on everything, you can always get another point of view, and you can always use a different characteristic, a different trait for whenever you're making decisions. Yeah.
And so now that comes to this question: what do you do when you disagree? Have you had moments where you disagree with your business partner? And your business partners, in many senses, are your parents.
Yes. So I have a pretty big team. We have national sales teams. We have regional brokers and a marketing team. So it's grown from being just me and a family company to actually hiring people like an office admin and everything like that. And so one thing that's challenging is if we have a problem, well, first of all, since my parents are older, they have more experience. It's usually what they decide. Like, they know a little bit, know more about running a company than I do. But if we have a disagreement, we'll always get a really big marker board and have everyone on our team, I guess, put what could be good about this, what could be bad, to find someone that's more experienced than you are and learn and then apply what you've had from that disagreement. But it's usually I'll learn from my parents when we do have a disagreement, which is rare.
Which is rare,
yeah.
Right, because you guys have kind of got this harmonious sensibility. You fill in each other's blanks. You're the leader of this company because you're the person who kind of put this idea out there. What type of leader would you like to be? Where would you like to see yourself as somebody running this business or another business or whatever it is that comes?
I would hope to be as helpful as I can as possible. So even if I do another company, it would probably be a social company, so something that helps solve a problem, which I think is really, really important. But as I continue to be a leader, I would like to be as helpful, whether it's to the team or whether it's to the different people in our audience, which we do have an amazing, whether it's through social media or through like our consumers in the store. I hope to be as helpful, and I hope to get as much insight and knowledge and different opinions as I can and take that into consideration.
What does your day-to-day business life look like? What do you do when you wake up and do your thing?
So I'm 14, and I'm a freshman in high school, so I still have to go to school. And that starts at like 8:30. I still have to do chores. I still have to do homework.
Right.
So a lot of the times, if I'm working on my company, it's on the weekends or it's during breaks like summer, which thank goodness is coming up soon.
Yeah.
But that's usually when I have the time to work on my company. And when I'm not doing that, when I'm at school, it's my family, it's the team that really controls the business, and then I'll help out on the weekends, I'll help out on breaks, and I'll help out after school when I can. So it's busy. I do have a lot of homework, and I do have a lot. We're writing a book that's supposed to come out. I'm writing a book that's going to come out June of next year. It's going to be called Be Fearless, and it's for young adults. So I have to write a book as well as write my English essay. So
Right.
it can get hard to balance that sometimes, and it's important to, I think, to use technology in order to help you balance that. So a good calendar and a planner and things like that. But yeah, it does get pretty busy sometimes.
And what is life like now in high school for you? So you show up and you're the young lady who started a lemonade industry.
So I usually don't like incorporate the two things. So I won't go to school and say, oh, I just came back from like a presentation at the Brain Bar. I like to keep them pretty separate for the most part.
Sure.
But if there is someone at school that's trying to do the business fair or trying to start a different company, then I'd love to help. So if they want to know, hey, how can I make a website? Well, here's some cool things that you can use that I've used in the past. Or how can I make a logo? We'll use this graphic designing software, and I'll help you, like, I'll teach you how to use it. So I'm always available to help, and I love like teaching my friends what I know. I love learning from my friends, but I usually don't like incorporate too much of my business into my school.
You seem pretty media savvy, like electronic savvy. So what is that in your life? Like,
Okay, so for the most part, I think all Generation Z are media savvy. They're native to technology, and so we know how to work it. We all know how to use tech, but it's important to apply that in business. So we've got free applications that help us make logos and do websites and have an e-commerce site, and it's like right at our fingertips. And so it's important to learn how to utilize that technology into, I guess, starting a company as well.
Yeah. I want to just add, because we kind of didn't touch on this, the idea of the bees, really, because I know that that's central to your dreams. And you mentioned yourself that if you would ever work with or for someone else, it would certainly be a cause that you think needed to be something to improve or change. What's happening with the bees and your mission to kind of save the bees, or at least change that circumstance?
So for those of you who don't know, the bees are one of our most important pollinators. And unfortunately, due to CCD, which is colony collapse disorder, they're dying very quickly. And so it's anywhere from pollution to pesticides to different mites and insects that are going to the hives and infecting the different bees. But there's over 20,000 species, and a lot of times people just focus on honeybees, which is very important. But a lot of times it's different species like the Hungarian bumblebees, or the other smaller bees or even bigger bees that are at risk of going extinct. And so because they're pollinators, they contribute to the foods that we eat every day. So things like chocolate, fruits and vegetables, and even cheese, because cheese is made by cows, and like cheese is dairy is made by cows eat alfalfa, bees pollinate alfalfa. So bees are pretty much linked to every food we eat. My mission is, because they're dying, because they're such important pollinators and they're critical to our ecosystems, I'm trying whatever I can with my company to help save them. So I'll travel to different schools and organizations and teach them, okay, here's why you shouldn't be afraid of the bees, and here's how you can help save them. And 2 years ago, I started a nonprofit called the Healthy Hive Foundation, so I can do just that, and I can partner with even larger companies like Microsoft for finding ways to collect data through technology and get research on the beat. So it's one of my passions. I have a lot of different things that I enjoy, and I think that the most successful companies are social ones because the founders are passionate about it, and because they're interested in what they do, and they have a cause that helps motivate them to keep on growing the company.
Well, I think that sounds absolutely fascinating, and I really, upon seeing a lot of documentaries about this, it's extremely frightening to understand how desperately in trouble the bees are, and we have so much to change with that. I really, really appreciate your passion for that. I think it's fantastic, and I love that it's so central to this idea that you build from your own passion, essentially. I want just quickly go back to this recipe. You found this tattered book. You got Grandma's recipe. Is that the recipe you're still using right now?
Yes. So of course we've had to change it because now we went from making 2 pitchers in the kitchen to making 1,000-gallon vats of lemonade. So of course we've had to make different alterations, but it's still my great-grandma's trade secret of how that she got the flaxseed in there and of how much flaxseed compared to lemonade. And we've gotten people that bought the lemonade and tried it and said, this is really good, and I know flaxseed's super healthy, but you can't even taste it. And so we're like, yeah, that's our goal. That's why we still use that recipe. So I feel like family traditions are really important. A lot of companies and different entrepreneurs take a family tradition and use that for a product. And so that's what I did, and I think that's one of the most important parts of it.
Mikaila, thank you so much.
Thank
You're a real delight and an inspiration. A big round of applause for her once again.
Thank you.
You're lovely.